Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the trade report video for the week of January 15th, 2017. So first up, guys, let's take a look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average ETF here, the DIA. And so, once again, that 20,000 level on the Dow is still can't get there, and it's still consolidating below that key level here. If we look at this, they had a big market run up, and then basically for the past month or so, it's basically been going sideways in a consolidating pattern. So this is not really bearish action. It's actually just kind of neutral, sideways, bullish consolidation as far as I can tell. And it's got the market's still lots of good setups out there. And so in my opinion, the market's just resting before the next leg up through that $20,000 level, unless something technically happens to change that. But that's what I'm seeing at this point. There's the Dow. Take a look at the SPY. So you can see the SPY, kind of the same thing. It had this brief kind of pullback, intermediate downtrend here, and then recovered, and it's still just consolidating above, below the highs here. And so this looks, nothing to be concerned with at this point on the SPY either. Still looks pretty good here. Bullish consolidation. IWM small caps, kind of a similar thing here. This IWM's got some resistance here at 138, and it's got some support down here at 134, and it's still just kind of in this sideways range consolidation. It looks good. Nothing to be too concerned about. So it's just the market's just consolidating at this point. All right, so next up, let's take a look at a couple of the sector ETFs. First, let's take a look at XLF, the financials. Financial sector actually kind of rallied intraday on Friday and then pulled back below into this sideways range. Very similar looking to the indexes. After the big run up, just kind of sideways consolidation. And so, but a lot of the banks have earnings this week. They had some earnings last week, and so those numbers are good. Looks like this sector is going to head higher. A lot of banks. The chart patterns still look very bullish. Still an uptrend there with all the banking stocks. Let's see, XLE. This is the energy ETF. So this one is, you can clearly see it's in an intermediate term downtrend here. See how it pulled back, put in a lower high, and then a lower low, lower high, lower low. And so this is in a downtrend. However, as you can see, what I put on this chart is the 50-day simple moving average. And oftentimes the 50-day moving average is one key indicator that I do like to look at, and because oftentimes stocks that are in longer term uptrends will find support and then will bounce off that level, and we'll talk about that in some of these steel names later. But it's just one key average that actually I think has some relevance, and I see it very often is where stocks that are in longer term uptrends will pull back to the rising 50-day moving average and find support there. And so looking at XLE, you can see how it's getting very close down here. So it could start putting in a bottom and start reversing, putting in some higher highs and higher lows for the next leg up. And I think that's very possible looking at this chart. So just keep that in mind. And then let's just take a real quick look at the IBB. So this one, the IBB, I had this key resistance here at around 276. It broke that, had a nice 4 or 5 day run. And then Trump, I think, tweeted something or said something, and the sector took a big hit that day. But it's quickly had 2 green up days, and several biotechs in the sector. Let's see, CLVS is one, AKAO, and there's several other ones that had some really big breakouts the last couple of days, Thursday and Friday. So to me, the biotech sector still looks like it's strong, and there's still some really good looking setups in there, and we have a couple of them going into next week that we'll talk about. So that's the sectors and the major indexes. So now we'll get into the trade ideas from last week and some of the names for this upcoming week. So first up, let's just talk about the marijuana stocks, okay? So the marijuana stocks have had some huge runs. And the first one, and this was on our last Monday on the watch list, and as a key top setup through this spot here at around 20 cents, okay? So it was, the pattern was there, it had a perfect breakout setup. And not only that, this pattern, you know, right here leading up into this breakout, you could see it in other names in the sector, specifically OWCP and AXIM. Both of those stocks had basically the same, all three of those stocks. And when you start to see the pattern, a key pattern like that, in several names in the sector, it gives you more confidence in the setup. So keep that in mind, and I'm always looking at that. Is the sector strong? Are other names in the sector showing similar patterns? And if so, then you know it gives it more relevance and more confidence that the trade's actually going to do what it looks like it's going to do. But this level here was key, right around 20, maybe 21. But I entered here, and then it had a very nice breakout, exactly what you want to see. Okay, so on this day here, here's the big breakout, and the big volume stick right there, big volume expanding. So that's basically the holy grail of trading. A breakout on expanding volume is what you want to see. And then, so at that point, you can use your profit target based on the depth of the pattern. Maybe the depth of this pattern down here is 12, to say 20, so that'd give you an 8 points, okay? That'd be your first profit target here. The depth of this pattern is approximately, there's some candles down here, candles in here. So I take the average. So I'd say somewhere in 12 area to 20, okay? So that gives you an 8 point. So your first target would be around 28, okay? And so the way I traded this one is I bought it and then I sold all of my position on this day here, okay? So I held it for 1, 2, 3, 4 days and sold out at a 42% gain, I think, on the position, right? And so now you're thinking, well, the next day it has this huge rally, and I think it even closed up at 38. So it closed on its highs, and you're like, well, man, I sold too soon. I had a couple of members say, I should have held longer. Well, here's the thing. You're never going to catch the top. But when the market gives you a huge gain, 40% in just a few days is really big. And this thing ultimately was nearly a 100% gain. So one way to handle that is to understand that as these things get more extended, they're more likely to get a really sharp snapback. Okay, and so if you're sitting in one of those, and let's say that this day here was the peak, right? Let's say up 29, and you held, and then and the next day it just slammed back to say 22. You'd be kicking yourself saying, I wish I would have sold more. So one way to handle that is to sell half into, like, let's say you get a 40% gain and you sell half of a position and hold the rest of it for a bigger move, or you can sell it all. But it's just, when the market hands you a big payday like that, you kind of have to pay yourself, because as it gets extended, and these things are really likely to snap back. And even though this one was nearly a double, 40% is still pretty good. So congratulations if you caught that. I know a couple of people in the members did catch that. And just to kind of give you another, and this is EAPH, okay? So this was one that I traded a couple weeks ago on this 2 cent breakout here, right? And we went over this video, I think the last trade report video. But if you take a look at, this one, it was a weed stock that broke out through this 2 cent level, and we traded that one, right? So here's the 2 breakout, right? And then this one went up to nearly 3 cents and then pulled back. Well, in this one, I nearly caught the top in that one at around 3 cents. I got out right near 30 cents. The next day, gapped up and then crashed, okay? And that was the peak. So roughly 40% was the peak of that one before it started pulling back, right? So even though MSIG ran more, this one ran, from 20 to, so that was, roughly 40%. I nearly, timed that one perfectly on the peak there. But if you try to catch the tops and bottoms, it's very difficult. But if you can catch the meat of the move, you're doing better than probably 95% of people. So keep that in mind. Don't kick yourself. Don't get mad at yourself if you sell too soon. If you catch a big piece of the move, there's always another setup and always another play. So first up, that's MSIG, and you know, obviously people that are buying up here at 38 are probably going to get hammered pretty good, because I think this thing put in a blow off top on Friday and is really going to do something like AXIM did. Okay, so let's take a look at AXIM, the other weed play that had this perfect ascending triangle pattern through $9. And I didn't trade this one, but man, I know some people who did, and they did very well. But had a perfect breakout here, and then just boom, 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 basically a double in just 4 days. But had you continued holding this thing, you see what happened here on this next day on Friday, just slammed down. And that's what happens as these things is basically parabolic. They're just accelerating so fast to the upside. You have to learn how to basically take profits into that extreme strength, because it's unsustainable, and it's often an indicator of a reversal move, at least in the intermediate term. It's basically like on the downside you get these basically panic selling, and that's often an indication, very high volume exhaustion selling that then often turns into a bottom and a reversal to the upside. So that's basically what you're trying to do. You're trying to catch the meat of the move. But I mean, 30, 40, 50, 80% in just a few days is huge. So congrats if you caught that. The pattern was there, and look, it's just a great setup there. Look at OWCP. I mean, just an absolute monster move here. Look at this thing. It's parabolic now. Okay, so here was the setup, just like MSIG. You had the pattern right there. Okay, there was a breakout right around 20 cents. And then this one, I actually did trade this one, and I actually, it was a small position, and I sold it, I think, on the second day, or maybe the first day, I forget. But I did pretty good with it. It just wasn't a very big position. I had much more in MSIG, and I did well with that one. But this one, once again, over a double in just a few days. Okay, so taking profits, selling partials, and then keeping some, because sometimes this type of lottery move will happen, but it's not typical that you get these monster moves like this. Not every day, I should say, that you get those. So when you do catch one, make sure that you do lock yourself in those gains before it reverses. But OWCP, just another one, same sector and same pattern, and so just want to kind of go over those. Obviously none of these now are in buyable range. You can't buy these things up here. You just got to wait. They'll probably have a big snap, pull back, consolidate, and then put in another pattern. So now let's move on to CBIS, which is my top setup for Monday. Okay, guys, I've been waiting on this thing. It's in the marijuana sector, and it is just beautiful. Okay, I just love this setup. Got a nice position in it, but it's got the same pattern as other weed plays. Okay, so here's the breakout here at near 7 cents. One, twice, put in this kind of cup and handle pattern, and then just flagged here. And then on Friday, two great things happened. A, it actually got to 7 and closed at 7. So it closed at the highest point in this little flag pattern, and it had huge relative volume compared to the last 10 days or so. So it had some really nice volume spike right there at 7. I'd be pretty shocked if this thing didn't have a big breakout next week, probably on Tuesday. And so then the question is, how far is this thing going to go? I don't know. I would say, for measuring purposes, I would use, say, 4.5 cents to 7 cents. So I think at a minimum it's going to do 10 cents, and it could probably do more than that, considering the moves in some of these other plays. So I think 10 cents is a good first target on this CBIS, so that'd be a nice % gain. So keep that in mind going into next week. That's the best looking setup that I can see right now. Okay, so see, next up, let's take a look at another marijuana play, BLOZF. So this is a Canadian marijuana play, I believe, but it's got this spot here right around 70 cents. See these candlesticks here, went up there and tapped that, and then this one went up there, although extended further, and then these this last recent high and this last recent high. So 70 cents looks like a nice relevant spot here. This one is Um, looks like it's basically basing here right above the 50-day moving average. And I would watch this one for a push through 70 cents maybe next week or something. So this one is definitely one to watch. And when it does break out, you can see it's got some, really nice moves, 2-day moves that it can really move quickly in a couple of days. So keep BLOZF on your radar as well. Okie dokie. So let's go over some other plays here, list of names both on from last week and from this week's top trade idea list. So AQXP, a biotech stock. This was broke out through this 15 spot. This was a nice cup and handle pattern here. Broke out, gave you a breakout pullback all the way to there, and now it's back up near its recent highs around 1835 area. So this one, with the biotech sector remaining strong and lots of breakouts in that sector, I think this is a good one to watch through, say, 1840 area, somewhere in there, breaking out to a new high. It's a good looking longer term chart there. AQXP. LVLT, this one had a nice breakout through this, which put it through 57, let's say 5750 area, which made new multi-year high, I think 3 or 4 year highs on this day right here when it broke out here. And then basically it's kind of pulling back here. It looks like it's stabilizing, but I would expect this one to turn up and make new highs. Since this breakout here put it into a multi-year high, it's a very relevant breakout, and it had huge volume. So this one probably perks up and moves higher, but it's a big cap name, probably a slow mover, but the pattern looks good. AKAO is a biotech, very strong pattern here. We're watching this one as it pulled back on this day on this big green candle. Was a telling sign that it was ready to go higher, and ever since then it's just stair stepping, and then on Friday, big breakout through the recent highs, and so this is a very strong biotech. I think it's going to go higher. I don't know if it's in buyable range right here, but maybe on some consolidation, but this was very strong breakout there in AKAO. VBIO, this was another marijuana stock I'm watching. The pattern now is kind of broken, but I just want to keep an eye on this one, maybe through this 330 level here. I think it could be setting up some type of pattern like this, with kind of resistance in this area, kind of an ascending triangle type pattern. So I think there's a potential for this one to perk up too. So this is just one I'm watching here, with the sector being really strong. And also on this chart, take a look at this. It's really quick. See these, this big run up right here. This is a really monster move from $1.50 to almost $4, right? And then see this big red candle here? Boom, this big red snapback in 2 red days. So once again, keep that in mind, these parabolic moves, and then this big red reversal for 2 days, and just really reverses hard to the downside. So these are the things I don't want you guys to get caught in, because this, you can't buy something up in this range here, then you get this happen to you, so but just to keep that in mind as these things get extended. This type of action is but then they can start to set up again like this one does, and then you can reassess the situation. But so this is just another weed play on my radar, VBIO. Cara, a nice biotech that remains been on the watch list for a while. Ever since it basically broke out through this 10 spot, it started putting in these higher highs and higher lows, and then the next level was right in here around 1050, and now it's just once again putting in kind of the stair step higher. So yeah, I still believe this one's going back to the recent highs at 1250, and then probably breaks out the new highs. So this Cara still looks pretty good. CUTR is a medical company here. This had a nice pattern right in here, broke out, consolidated right around the breakout, and then had a big green candle, a couple of red days, and then it still looks like it's going higher. So this is nice, in a nice steady uptrend right now. But this one, just to kind of give you an example of an ascending triangle type pattern and how they can continue to run for multiple days after they break out. So that's Cutter. Edit is another biotech that has a spot right around 19 where it's trying to break, and it still looks pretty good here. If we go back, let's see, 90 days or something, you can kind of see where it bottomed and then sort of putting in these higher highs, higher lows, and then it's just got some resistance area right around this 19 spot. It's poked through it a couple times, but to me it looks like it's just kind of absorbing the sellers there, and then eventually this thing's going to punch through 19. So that's one to watch in the biotech sector. See, Salt is a bulk shipper, and first breakout in this one was right around $6, right in here. Was a key kind of level here. As it found resistance, had a brief pullback, and then rallied back towards that 6 level. I actually think this one closed around 620. E-Trade Pro shows the after hours ticks, or the after hour price. But this one, I think this one's probably going to go higher through this recent high, through 6, I don't know, I think that's 630, somewhere in there. But just to kind of give you, see, this is another bulk, Star Bulk shippers. You can see how that one had a nice kind of pattern here, and then broke out, and then had some really nice run here. So I think you could see some similar action to this in Salt. It's got a similar kind of breakout pattern as this one, this SBLK. So yeah, there's Salt. I think that one still looks good. Let's see. KAYS, another weed play. So this one had a big run up, pull back, sideways, and then it looks like it's kind of starting that stair step higher, and so it's one to watch here if the marijuana sector remains strong, which it sure looks like it is. And so the next resistance up around this one would be around 48 cents, but that one looks good. Let's see here. Okay, so next up, let's take a look at CVSI. So this is another really fantastic looking breakout setup in the marijuana sector, and looking at this one, had a huge run back here all the way up to almost $1, and then fell off, okay, and then kind of flatlined here, and then at this point it broke out with some heavy volume, and then put in a flag type pattern, just sideways, sideways, sideways. And then right here, got this resistance at 45 cents. And then on Friday, rallied right into that spot and closed right at the 45 level. So this one looks fantastic. And I think this one's going to break through 45. I would say, based on the pattern, maybe use 35 to 45. I think this one is good for probably 10 cents, 55 cents for a first target. But it's one of the better looking ones in the sector as well, CVSI. It looks ready to go through the 45-cent breakout. Next up is CLF, Cliff. It's a iron ore mining company. So a couple things I wanted to show on this chart is the 50-day moving average, okay? So see how this stock, a nice run up, and then it pulled back, for like, I don't know, maybe a month or something. But you can see here, as it got near the 50-day moving average, had this big green candle, two green days, and then a couple days of pullback. So you can see here how it bounced off this key support level, this 50-day moving average, okay? I've always heard that the 50-day is where like institutional buyers like to get into, strong stocks. So I don't know if that's true or not, but all I know is you will see it if you look at enough charts and put the 50-day. You'll see how stocks will consistently bounce off that in longer term uptrends. So anyway, I just wanted to show this cliff that looks like at this point it had two red days, and it looks like it's starting the stair step higher after finding support here. So cliff, I think, is very likely to head back towards 1050 area, probably have a big rally. The first point of interest would be through 10, and then through these recent highs made back here. But cliff, I think, still looks good. And then let's take a look at AK Steel. Let's see this. So I've been watching this one for a while, and we can see here that it did not break out through this flag pattern that I've been thinking it was going to break through this 1130s area, somewhere in there. But so looking at this chart, you can see this big run up and then this bullish consolidation, and then it basically had a big red day on some Credit Suisse, I think, downgraded them, and so it had this big red day, and then Friday closed a little bit lower. But if you look at, I was looking at all the steel names, STLD and X, and I'm looking at their charts, and this 50-day moving average basically is converging, and they're almost touching their 50-day. I mean, this one is really close, AK Steel, and also looks like this 950 low. Actually, the low of this candle here, right around like 965, 67 area, was the low of this candle, and so it's right in that area now. Plus, it's at the 50-day. So, just watching these steel names, I think these things could bounce off that level. And another one, let's take a look at STLD. You can see how that one is right there, nearly touching its rising 50-day moving average. So I wouldn't be surprised if these things start to show some strength at this area. And then also X, also right there at that 50-day. And just to kind of give you take a look back at Cliff and see Cliff. See how it pulled right back there, and then boom, had a big spike all around that level. So I think it's possible that these steel names could follow suit with a similar pattern that you're seeing here in a CLF. So keep that in mind. Let's see. Mosaic. This is a fertilizer company, and it's on the verge of breaking out to new 52. Actually, it did make new 52-week highs intraday on Friday or Thursday, and it still poked through and then fell back through. But if you look at the longer-term chart, you can see it's long downtrend, and then it's trying to break out of this basically sideways action, long-term sideways action, into maybe a new bull market here in the fertilizer sector. So anyway, that Mosaic looks pretty good. Also in the fertilizer sector is IPI. I've been watching this one for a while. I still have a position in it, and what I'm using as my risk level is this $2 level. It's held it there. It held on this pullback, and then it's also Friday it actually took a little bit of a dip, but I think there's potential for this thing to get bought out, and so I'm still going to hold a position in it. And it looks like a longer term type flag pattern here, and so we'll see if there's any news, but I'll hold this one as long as 2 holds. If 2 fails, I'll have to cut it, but I'm going to give this one some time because I do like the longer term chart on this one. Okay, Phelp. Phelp is one that is an oil play, and this one is one that I traded, but I ended up basically breaking even on it because I thought this was a breakout here through this recent high and it was going to continue, but it failed and it kind of pulled back, so I had to cut it. But this is another good example of 50-day support. So take a look at Phelp here. Notice, this pullback here to 50-day, kind of rode the 50-day, rallied, kind of closed, and then bounced off it over the last several times, kind of bouncing off this rising 50-day. So keep that in mind. The 50-day moving average is an important level to watch. And so Phelp, it's got this spot right around 750. Okay, had this pullback here, rally, pullback, shallower than this one, and then now it actually tested 750 on Friday, closed near there. So I like this felt, and I think there's potential for this one to break 750 next week, possibly go to 8 or 850, maybe even to this wick high up here, 830, somewhere in there. So I like this chart. At longer term, you can clearly see that it's just very bullish, very solid uptrend there. It has these big run-ups, and then it puts in a base, run up, put in another base, and it just looks like it's completing another stage base here. So still like felt. It's kind of a thin trading name, but it's a good chart. Let's see, Alcoa had a nice breakout to all-time highs through this 32 level, and looks like it's just putting in a flag here. This is an aluminum company, manufacturers of aluminum, and so this is one breakout to new highs, and then it looks like it's just consolidating here for the next leg up. So I still like that one. AA. Vale is similar to CLF. It's I think it's an iron ore company that mines for iron ore. But anyway, this one's breaking out to new highs. Just made some new multi-year highs, I think, on Friday. Let's go back. So yeah, so this is a 2-year chart. So this breakout was to at least a 2-year high. And then so another thing too is look at this Vale chart. Once again, you can see the 50-day, and you can see how Vale, when it pulled back to the 50-day, even though it breached it for one day, it quickly closed above the 50-day and then rallied big off of there. So once again, a lot of these iron companies, steel, basic material stocks that rallied during Trump when he got elected are pulling back to the 50-day and then finding support and rallying off that level and continuing their uptrend. So just keep that in mind. It's what I'm seeing. Let's look at another. ASMB, biotech play. Just a nice breakout on Friday. On Thursday had a big green candle here all the way up to 14, and then broke out through that. So this one's still early breakout. I think this one has more upside in it. Nice looking chart, and I think this one, if the biotech sector remains strong, which it looks like it will, this one should go higher. ASMB. IRDM, another nice looking chart, had a failed breakout on Friday, but it poked through on some good volume. So this is one of those ones where maybe it just needs a couple of days to kind of absorb the selling before it actually breaks and holds. But this one, this pattern still looks good, and I think this one has potential to make new highs here. So that one looks good. AERI is a biotech, so it's got basically right around 42. Had this touched it there, had a brief break of it, and then pulled back, and then now it's trying again. So this is basically a long base. I think that's basically a 3-month basing here, and it looks like that it's ready to break out of this base and make new highs. So this is one to keep an eye on here. AERI still looks good. SCCO is a copper mining company, and this one broke out through this resistance here at 35 to new multi-year highs. And so I think this one is still very early in the breakout if you want to trade this one through this 35, 30, yeah, so it closed at 35.35, but I think this one's good for higher prices. Also looking at the copper futures. I don't trade futures, but I kind of want to learn how. But the copper futures look really good. The price of copper looks like it's ready to break out and make some new highs. So the chart on the underlying commodity also looks really good. So that's SCCO. Let's see. LGCY, this one's a nice looking oil play here. It's got a spot here right around $2.60. Had a big breakout back here, pull back, and it looks like it's just putting in a higher low here and ready to bust through this 260 spot. I like the daily chart on it. You can see the longer term trend here, how it's putting in higher highs and higher lows. So I think this one through 260 next week looks good. ENTG, nice looking breakout setup here. Tried to break out on, say, Wednesday, closed up at the highs, one red day, and then Friday recovered all that and closed right up near the recent high around 19. So this one through 19 looks really good. Looks like it's going to break out of this basing period here. So one to watch if you're interested. EMMBF, this is another weed play. It's kind of a liquid, but it has a nice pattern. It had this big green candle, and then it just kind of stair-stepped higher, and it looks like it's consolidating here. I think the trigger to buy on this one is a break of 360, because that looks like it's a very important level, and but it is kind of thin. So, but it's a nice looking chart, and if the weed sector stays strong, I think this one has a good chance of moving higher. EMMBF, and then finally is VIAV. Not a big mover, but it looks like it's got a nice pattern here. Breakout through 885 or 865, I should say. So this just looks like it's ready to make some new highs here. VIAV, nice looking chart. Longer term, it's not a very fast mover. It's kind of a slower mover, so keep that in mind. Not going to be a big winner for you. Actually, I forgot. One of the most important names, let's see, so Icon, I still have a position in this, and this one had a nice pattern here, been on the watch list for a couple weeks, or at least a week, I think. And so basically I entered down here at 970, anticipating this $10 breakout, okay? So this one broke 10, and then a couple days of consolidation here above 10, which was very constructive, and then on Friday, broke out to new highs. This is multi-year highs through let's see, 2 years maybe? 2 year, 1 year. So new 52-week high. Okay, so back here was a high here right around 1029, 1030, and this one broke through that on expanding volume on Friday. So ICON, I still have a position in this one. I still think this one's going higher. I don't think it's too late to enter this one. And my profit target using the depth of this pattern, 875 to say 10 bucks. So $1.25-ish from the breakout. So I think this one's good for 1150, 11 to 1150. I think would be a good first target. So I still really like this chart here, and once again, it had the key breakout on expanding volume and to new highs, multi-year highs, or at least a 52-week high. So Icon, I still have a position in. I think this one's going higher. So. Okay guys, that's all I got for tonight, and so biotech still looks strong. Some of the steel names could potentially find support at their 50-day. The marijuana stocks, Cibus, top pick, looks the best. I think it's going to have a big move on Monday, or Tuesday I should say, and then you know, some of the other weed plays, BLOZF, and also look excellent, so I'll be watching those. But hope you guys have a good weekend, and we'll see you Tuesday. Thanks.